Hi guys, how's it going? This is Resonant and Colin for YouTube. Back with a Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I know it's been a while. So this is the Supernatural Part 2. And if you haven't watched Supernatural Part 1, I touched upon sort of the beginning of how the Supernatural kind of started in Dark Shadows with ghosts, with different people telling you about them. This This is something a little different. By a little, I mean a lot in ways, because we're not just going to have ghosts, more specifically one ghost. You're going to have the ghost of Josette. You're also um, going to have Laura Collins. You might say, well, what's the big deal about Laura Collins? Well, I find folks, the Dark Shadows writers are going to use the myth of the Phoenix. Now, I am going to get into the specifics here. So, the Phoenix is a legendary immortal bird that psychically regenerates or is otherwise born again. Organization in Greek mythology, its originalization, easy enough for me to say. In Greek mythology, it has analogs in many cultures. Now, this is where the Dark Shadows writers are going to kind of pull from, such as Egyptian and Persian mythology associated with the sun. A phoenix obtains new life by rising from the ashes of its predecessor. Uh, some legends say it dies in a show of flames and combustion, while others say it simply burns to death and decomposes before being born again. Uh, a tool used by folklorists, the phoenix is classified as a motive. The origin of the phoenix has been attributed by ancient Egypt by Herodotus and later 19th century scholars. But other scholars think the Egyptian text may have been influenced by classical folklore. Over time, the phoenix spread and gained a variety of new associations. Again, it varies. Like I said, it varies. But here, I'm going to go with the Egyptian one. Now, some of this here that you see in Dark Shadows is taken from the Egyptian context. They are following that rule. They're not necessarily following completely the Greek rule. Some of it they are, but mostly it's the Egyptian role. Sorry. Um, so Laura Collins, Diana Malay's character in this series, um, she mentioned the place her character has been is Phoenix, Arizona, and this sort of segues into her version of the Phoenix's history, if you will, where she says that Phoenix, Arizona got its name from the Phoenix, the myth of the Phoenix, the Egyptian myth, um, where it bursts into flames and dies in a show of flames. We do see that. We see that by the end of this series, where there's a show of flames. Laura is bursting into flames in a sense by the end of this, not the end of this series, the end of this storyline, I should say. My apologies. Um, so how do they make a phoenix look like a human being? Well, because that isn't part of the original myth, right? Which would be correct. It's not. They sort of add their own trinkets here, which is smart. So what they're gonna Laura here is Laura in name only. I've talked about this before with the characters of House of Dark Shadows, how they're the character in name only. This in every way, shape, and form, I would say, is where that starts with Dark Shadows. We're gonna remember Laura Collins, David's mother, is hardly mentioned in the beginning. She's mentioned here, maybe there, but not much. Again, I've talked about this before, how there's very little build to a character, or almost no build. This is the same thing. Very little build to this character. There's very little build to Laura Collins arriving in Collinsport. Other than the only really time she gets brought up is during a manslaughter discussion, and because there was 3 people involved in that case. But what we also know, there was a 4th. The 4 people that we know of: Burke Devlin, Laura herself, Roger, and Sam Evans. Now nobody knew Sam saw anything, so Sam didn't testify. Laura comes back. Maggie doesn't know who she is, and Maggie should not know who she is. This is very much correct. So again, Laura in name only. You could say, well, she looks like Laura. Everybody, the people who know Laura best, like Sam more specifically, Roger, Burke, Liz, they all recognize her as Laura. I think that's the key thing too. What really, Diana Malay does a great job. I'm not taking anything away from her, but what really helps Diana Malay's character is the recognition by the other cast members of her character, by their characters. So it doesn't have to be Victoria, because Victoria's never seen David's mother. She's never seen Laura, right? So you have Elizabeth, who has seen Laura. You have Roger, who has seen Laura. You have Burke, who has seen Laura. In the past, is what I'm meaning. They know what she looks like. They know what she sounds like. So here she is, all these years later, hypothetically coming back to Collinsport, but they don't know this is not Laura herself. This woman who is representing herself as Laura Collins, as David's mother, is not David's mother, in any way, shape, and form. This is the Phoenix, who had a boy named David, and therefore David is a Collins. Now you could say, so did the original Laura, was she a Phoenix? The writers are going to say yes. Now, I'm not here to disagree with them. I'm not here to put up a fracas. I think what you have here is an imitation of life. There was once, at one point in time, a real Laura Collins that gave birth to David. Remember because the creepiest part about this whole thing, there are some creepy parts, but the most is when the Arizona State Police, fictional, are talking to Laura Collins about how this woman burned up in her apartment and it's identified as her, as Laura. I think the real Laura had been studying the myth of the Phoenix. Remember when the Phoenix says, I've been here, I've been there, as Laura? I think Laura was all those places, including Egypt. And again, this is something that's, Laura does say she was in, Laura herself lived in Phoenix. Why Phoenix? Why Phoenix, Arizona? Why specifically there? What about Phoenix drew her to there, right? Maybe she had already been, maybe Laura herself had been studying. Again, that's just my hypothesis. I could be wrong. Maybe the writers are right. I would say if you're going to go off the written text of the show, sure, the writers are correct. I'm not here to disagree with them at all. But this is, first and foremost, this is a great story arc. So you have Diana Malay playing Laura Collins, as I've said. Really, there's some great interactions, right? So I talked about how all the during that investigation with the cops, everybody is saying, "Hey, this is Laura." Roger's saying it, and Liz is kind of skeptical. Again, but Liz is always skeptical, right, of any outsiders. So is Roger usually. But Roger doesn't see Laura as an outsider. He sees Laura for what he really wants, which is a way to get rid of David. Remember, there's always motive and opportunity for other characters inside Dark Shadows, inside the story arcs or storylines themselves. So that's all Roger really sees. Roger sees a way to get rid of his responsibility, that is David Collins, that is his son. He doesn't see Laura as an immediate threat that she is. And because she isn't flashing her powers around, keep in mind, the first person to really get a supernatural sort of experience isn't through Laura herself right away. It's through the ghost of Josette. So Sam Evans, who was the first to recognize who Laura was, because keep in mind, the conversation between Joe and Maggie is a speculative one. Like, who is that? Joe says the woman looks familiar, but he's not sure who she is. So he's not really recognizing her for who she is. He thinks the face is familiar, but that isn't necessarily recognizing who exactly someone is. The first person to do this would be Sam Evans, the local painter, right? He calls Roger to the Blue Whale, and what you have happen is, Roger, who's the one person who could wreck our lives, who could undo everything? Yeah, that's right, Roger, your wife. Your wife is back in town. Laura has come home. Roger is in shock. He is absolutely in shock. And keep in mind, Laura, air quotes, was asking about the Collins family, was asking about Roger, was asking about a little boy. Oh, do they have a little boy there, right? Okay. That to me is always sort of proof that the Phoenix is not truly Laura if you're asking if they have a little boy. Because if you're really that boy's mother, don't you know that the little boy should still exist? Like, that little tidbit right there has always been suspicious to me. Now, I've talked about how Laura gets up to the house. So she goes through Vicky. Elizabeth isn't really sure that she wants Laura around at first. Roger is more than sure, but so once he's also going to want a divorce, which Laura's willing to grant him. She just wants David. That's sort of her motto here. I want David. I want my son, as she puts it. So Laura talks to Vicky. Hey, can you help me? I haven't seen my son in forever. I love David Hennessy's reaction at first, because when she comes to the house and leaves, David is having a dream about his mother. Like, mother, mother. That was really well written by the episode. All these episodes are really well written, actually. So the first time they actually see each other, David and Vicky are out near Widow's Hill, and Laura, Vicky's arranging this meeting for Laura to help her, because keep in mind, this is a woman who, didn't know who her parents were, the Paul Winners. She knew what it was to be without a mother and father, and she didn't want David to not see his mother, because she thought of her. Vicky looked at children, I think, often similar, because especially children who had either absentee parents or parents who weren't in the children's lives. She didn't want them to not have an association with their parents, or at least know their parents. And so she arranges this meeting. Her and Laura sort of get together and arrange this, and it happens, right? So David is backing away from a woman that looks and sounds like his mother, but he hasn't seen his mother in a long, long time. He almost falls off Widow's Hill. And who saves him? Vicky saves him. Victoria Winter saves him. Not Laura. Laura doesn't even attempt to save him, which is really interesting. So sometime after this, you're going to have Laura move into the Matthew Morgan's old cottage. Don't worry, I'm getting back to Sam Evans here in a minute. Sam Evans, all this time, has been painting a weird painting, a weird portrait, if you will, of a woman in fire. And he comments on it. Sam Evans does. Sam has said in this arc, in this storyline, I don't know why I'm painting this. This isn't something I would usually paint. He's not talking about a portrait. He's talking about a woman who is clearly naked in fire. He's painted women before, but not like this. It's almost as if something is causing him the pain. You might say, well, maybe he's just doing it subconsciously. But no, he keeps tearing up the painting, and he keeps redoing it. Every time he tries to think of something different or draw something different, no, it keeps coming back to this. And the person who is doing this, if you will, is the ghost of Josette. The ghost of Josette is going to, in this battle of the supernatural, if you will, between a ghost and a mythical being that is a phoenix, you're going to have ghost versus bird of fire, in a sense. So Josette is using Sam to sort of help warn the Collins from, hey, this isn't what you think here. There's more going on here. This is also your hint to the audience that more is going on here with Laura. And then there's Liz. Now, once the portrait gets finished, by the way, the portrait gets finished. It is completely Laura. It is the woman you see. It's Diana Mallay's character in fire. And she's grotesque by it. She goes, I can't. Why would you even put that in this house? Well, David wanted it. And Josette puts the finishing touches on this portrait, mind you. And keep in mind, Roger takes the portrait and literally burns it and puts it in the fireplace. And you hear a loud scream when this happens. Again, you have a supernatural battle going on. You have supernatural mind games. The ghosts are trying to one-up Laura. The ghost is in Josette. And don't worry, Laura's going to write her own receipt here. But not to be unanswered, right? That's a beautiful thing about Dark Shadows. Gothic soap opera indeed. Because everything that you see here is not only done, it's done so goddamn well. The character interactions, the way the protagonists and antagonists interact with each other, all of them really, and I'm going to get into that here in a moment. And this sort of leads me to Liz. This was a great decision by the writers to sort of write Joan Bennett off the show a bit. And now they don't kill her character off, but they do the next best thing. They put her character in a comatose state. But not before she puts Carolyn in charge. So Elizabeth walks in at Matthew Morgan's cottage where Laura is living. They allow Laura to live in the cottage. They fix it up for her. It looks much nicer, by the way. So she's living there, and Burke, again, this is more, the supernatural is recruiting human beings, right? So before I get into Elizabeth breaking up the kissing scene, catching them kissing, Laura is seducing Burke. She doesn't have to use her powers of fire here, which she's going to do with Sam. And trust me, I'm going to get back to Sam here in a second. But I wanted to get to the seduction first, because it's beautifully done by Dana Malay and beautifully acted by Mitchell Ryan, who is playing Burke Devlin. He played the original Burke Devlin. I mean, he is head over heels in love with Ford. You can kind of see in every way how Burke became the sap for Laura back in the day, how he easily took the fall for the manslaughter charge. He was so convinced Laura was in love with him because she's seducing him all over again. It's one of those moments you don't need a flashback because, in a weird way, you're kind of getting a peek of what their relationship really was. Laura was always using Brooke. She was always using people around her because her looks allowed her to. This is a woman that is smoking hot blonde bombshell. I mean, absolutely beautiful. And she uses it. She seduces Burke. She gets him to kiss it. She gets him to kiss her. She kisses him back. No problems with the seduction here. Here comes Joan Bennett's Elizabeth, walks and sees it, and she goes, "I'm glad I saw this." Here's the thing. Burke says the same thing. Now, Burke doesn't wish her any ill will here, but Burke is also tired of hiding the secrets. Remember, this is a character who, though he's not breaking character in the sense of he doesn't want the secrets exposed, he's also including Laura. He's not talking the secret he doesn't know about of Laura's, of the Phoenix, because again, this isn't completely Laura, if you will, in my view. But again, you do see a lot of what the seduction was between Burke and Laura. He wants the Collins family exposed. He wants his name cleared of that manslaughter charge that he knows he didn't commit. He wants Laura to help him. Remember, Burke also is the one who warns Laura about Dr. Peter Gufford. Again, he's that seduced by her. So back to Sam here. Elizabeth. I'm trying to get this in order. I'm not doing a good job. So Elizabeth, after confronting, Laura about the whole kissing thing, goes back to the great house. And this is where Laura uses her telepathy powers of fire to sort of get inside Liz's head and sort of cause her to overheat and collapse just beneath the staircase. And so she's lying, after this, Elizabeth is laying in bed. She puts Carol in charge. Laura puts her in a deeper coma. This causes a lot of things to happen. And I'll get back into those things here in a moment. So I want to get back into Sam. Sam, again, he paints the portrait. And because he painted this portrait and Laura didn't like it, and Laura found it very unnecessary, because what it's really doing is the truth. It's not about the taste of the portrait. It's about what Laura feels this portrait is revealing of her, of what she really is. She is a phoenix. And again, as I've said, the Phoenix didn't include human forms, but the Dark Shadows Riders are playing around here with a very good idea. So, for his penance, because Sam's a smoker, and of course, the newspapers that are beneath him are going to catch fire, not by his hand, but are going to catch his hands on fire and burn them, and which is going to cause him to stop painting. Again, you have Josette, who's kind of speaking through Sam's artwork. You have the Phoenix receding the artwork, receding the artist. And we're not done here. They're not even close to being done here. You literally have one of the most interesting moments. So David has been going to the cottage, has been going to Matthew Morgan's cottage to visit his mother, to spend the night there. And he's spending the night here with his mother, and she's holding him. And here you see the appearance. And if you weren't convinced that Josette had anything to do with Sam Evans, with the other characters who are going to be involved here, this is your proof. This here is your proof. Because keep in mind, Vicky has been dropping hints to Victoria Winters, sending her to the graveyard where Laura's body was buried. Laura Murdoch Stockbridge body was buried, if you will. It's where we meet the creepy caretaker for the first time. So remember the smell of jasmine. It's the smell of jasmine. Hear this, see, or sorry, smell the smell of jasmine. Josette's ghost is around. Um, Also the creepy music sometimes. So you have that here. You have her when her and Frank are driving along the countryside. Vic, Alexander does a great job of saying Josette. She knows something. Uh, so when Josette's ghost appears in the cottage, you're like, uh-oh, something is really, Josette's been sort of giving us warnings, but there is definitely something going on here with this woman. She must be she is a huge threat because she put Liz in the hospital. This woman is a threat to her aunt, to David, and Josette knows it. And Josette's ghost appears, reaches out to David, and you want to talk about receipt? Here's the receipt for you. Josette's ghost gets told by Laura, "He's mine, Josette. He's mine." Um, Josette's ghost fades away, but she's not going anywhere. She'll be back. Really great job by everybody. Diana Blay is amazing. Uh, Again, just really David Hennessy does a great job. So Frank Gardner's character is somewhat important in this storyline. He's the one who suggests bringing in Dr. Peter Guthrie. He suggests it to Carolyn and the family members. So Carolyn, who's the head of the household, and again, I've talked about how writing Joe Bennett's character out was a great idea. Here's why. It helped the other characters give them a more to do and help them grow, especially Nancy Barrett's Carolyn Stoddard. Sorry, Carolyn Collins started, and Vicky too, and Roger, and David Hennessy. And then it also helps introduce a new character because you need somebody to sort of investigate what happened to Liz. They bring in Dr. Peter Guthrie, the character, and he's a parapsychologist, which gets into the supernatural. Now, he is not somebody who you see on modern television who sees ghosts at every corridor and jumps. No, this is what this right here, how that actor played Dr. Peter Guthrie is exactly how I want a parapsychologist to be. He's neutral. He's completely actually investigating the matter at hand. Because even he says he's a skeptic at heart. He has to play skeptic. He has to sort of be that. And when he interviews Victoria Winters, there's a very interesting discussion. He says, "Do you believe in ghosts, Miss Winters?" Vicky. And she goes, "I didn't used to, but I saw a ghost here. I've seen a couple ghosts here. I saw the ghost of Bill Malloy. I saw a ghost when I was standing in the drawing room." So she tells him, at first I was a skeptic until I saw a ghost here. So he goes, "It's not just David who has seen ghosts." And she goes, "No, it's not." So that lets at least Dr. Peter Guthrie know, okay, Hollow Wood is actually haunted, but why did the ghost haunt here? So he's asking the question, especially, why is the ghost of Josette seemingly so important? And that's sort of a question he's asking amongst himself and other people. He talks to Carolyn. Carolyn wants him to look to find out what happened. She's blaming. Carolyn does suspect Laura heavily. She pulls no punches, and I give Nancy Barrett all the credit in the world. Great. There's also great interaction between her and Louis Edmonds' character Roger Collins. There's a lot of great tension between the two of them about basically a power struggle that Roger knows he cannot win. Though Roger is working the attorneys and say he isn't, he's not only just asking for a divorce from Carolyn, he does ask, "Isn't there something I can do?" And they basically said, "No, Liz made her in charge. She's in charge." They take orders from her. So again, Carolyn is in charge. I also love, because this is where we first get our first two seances. The first seances in Dark Shadows history happened in this arc, in this storyline. You have a seance that includes Carolyn, Victoria Winters, Dr. Peter Guthrie, who speaks French, by the way. Shout out to Christine Pierce. um, huge shout out to her. Um, I'm gonna leave by the way, there's gonna be a lot of links in the description box. I'm gonna try to get them all mentioned and out here today. I have 2 videos to upload, including this one. But as I was saying, you have Roger who is there, uh, and Laura shows up kind of late. Very good, great entrance into the seance. And Vicky is. I talk about receipts. Here's where Josette receipts Laura uh, speaking French to through Victoria Winters at the seance, and you have Laura staring at her so evilly. And Laura says, oh, I didn't understand what she was saying. But Dr. Peter Guthrie says, well, I understand French too. And I understood very well what she was saying, which this puts Dr. Peter Guthrie in Laura's crosshairs. Now, before the second seance happens, you have the how do I put this? The unburying of a grave. So what happens here is Dr. Peter Guthrie's character recruits Joe Haskell because he asks, hey, is there anybody who knows the area? Yeah, Joe Haskell does. And Joel Carruthers does such a great job. Once he gets there and he's asked, hey, can you help me dig up a grave? You want me to help you what now? Like he's in shock. He does not want any part of this, but the reason he does it is simple. It's for Carolyn's mother. And you want to talk about the respect Joe has for Carolyn's mother and Carolyn's family. That's why he does it. And you love him for it. As much as I love to make fun of Joe Haskell at times, you love his moral compass. It's a great one. It's a great character compass. So I know I'm dragging on here, so I apologize, but they do this. This also helps Dr. Guthrie in his investigation. Laura, isn't happy with Dr. Guthrie, so when they get ready to hold the second seance, this time, it's different people. It is, yes, you have Alexander's character, you have Victoria Winters, David Collins is going to be part of this, but also Sam Evans is going to be part of this. Also, by this time, Burke has turned against Laura. So Roger went from what I love most about this storyline before I ultimately wrap this up is how this is sort of where Roger is slowly has become concerned about David and kind of sort of becoming a little more of a dad to him during this storyline. This is one of the ones. The biggest one is 1897, is what leads into 1897, where he's really concerned about his son. But this is sort of the start of the concern here because he reads how the boy David was burned alive in fire, and he thinks about his son. He's thinking, okay, he stops letting David go with Laura. David eventually has to sneak off. Oh, by the way, before all that, Dr. Peter Guthrie gets burned alive in his own car. His car gets wrecked because Laura's blinding him telepathically. His car flips, burns, and he's burned to death. He dies. Laura takes David to the shack by the sea, and a fire ensues. They're surrounded by fire. And to wrap this up, Vicky and Burke save David. Oh my gosh. Okay, I know I kind of sped through that one a bit, but that has been the Supernatural Part 2. I am very excited to do Supernatural Part 3. I hope you got. There are going to be links in the description box between the Shadows and Dark Shadows podcast. Give me a description box. The Back Room at the Blue Whale, Catherine Gonzalez's YouTube channel is going to be in the description box. Tara Collinwood is going to be in the description box. Penny Dreadful's channel. Alan Gallant's Collinsport After Dark is going to be in the description box. You guys have a great day, and